you have to say.
It's a pleasure. Well, I'm just going back to hopefully the arrows are going to work a little bit better than they did at Indaba.
Okay. Yes.
There,
Thanks,
there
Kate.
was a horrendous forward and back arrow
Yeah,
clicker thing at Indaba, which was driving a few people crazy.
good stuff.
So
Thanks,
yeah,
Kate.
I'm just going to turn my video off just in case it's going to interfere with connectivity, if
Good
that's
plan,
okay.
Kate. Yeah, there we go. Go for it. Thanks.
Great. Yeah. So thanks everyone, and thanks to Bismarck for inviting me after I gave this presentation at Indaba. And it's always wonderful to be able to share again with people in a different audience. And apologies to those of you who were at Indaba. It is exactly the same presentation. So yeah, maybe it'll just cement things in your minds instead of being just a boring repetition. So I wanted to present today on a project that I've been involved with through the Freshwater Research Centre in Cape Town. It's a project on the freshwater biodiversity information system. And my presentation at Indaba was really to catch everyone up on where we are with new spatial layers, new searches, etc., that speak specifically to wetlands. A team of us, and I acknowledge there on the screen my fellow authors, a team of us, which is myself, Dean Ollis, Nancy, and Ajwa from SANBI, have been part of the development of the wetland specific functionality on FBIS. So yeah, here we go. So basically, what is FBIS? I'm hoping that there are people in the audience who have engaged with the system already, perhaps registered users. Basically, it's an effort to bridge the biodiversity data gap in South Africa by improving our access to reliable data on trends in freshwater biodiversity, ecosystem condition, and a number of other components that we look at in our day-to-day lives as practitioners. And the data, it's not just current data; it's also historic data. So hence the ability to then look at trends and information across the whole country. It is an open access online platform, so free to all, and it serves, hosts, analyzes, and shares freshwater biodiversity data in South Africa. You will notice that there are some data points that have kind of drifted into Namibia, and I think also Lesotho and Eswatini. We're not exclusive. We have focused on South Africa, but when the data comes in, we do include it if it's beyond our borders. And the overall purpose of the platform is to support data-driven decision-making, and in so doing, improve or make us more smart in our conservation resource decisions in South Africa. Obviously, we all know that the better the data, the better the decisions we can make. The platform was developed with funding from the JRS Biodiversity Foundation, which is a US-based organization. And so far we have received 2 grants. The first phase was 2017 to 2020, and then the current phase 2021 to 24, so ending next year. And as I said, the platform was developed by FRC, the Freshwater Research Centre in Cape Town, but in partnership with SANBI and also Cartosa, who are our technical partners. So this is the landing page. So any of you who have gone onto FBIS, this is what you would have seen. I updated this page this morning, so you can see there that currently we have just over 609,000 occurrence records. So that's occurrence of biodiversity data. We have a total of almost 10,000 taxa. We have 489 users, etc. So it's quite handy when you arrive on the landing page that you can just see some summary statistics for FBIS. And also at the bottom, you can see there the main part of FBIS, which is our 6 biodiversity modules. So you've got fish, invertebrates, algae, adult odonates, anurans, and plants. So those are really the backbone of FBIS, the 6 biodiversity records. So the actual address to get to FBIS is there on your screens, and I'm happy to share this presentation afterwards, so you can all have access to that. So let's just go and have a little bit of an explore. And this is an update of a presentation that was done 2 years ago. So the focus really is on the new stuff, but hopefully at the end of today's presentation, you will know how to access and how to explore FBIS on your own. So users who have been engaging with FBIS before would have noticed that recently there was an addition of different ecosystem types. So FBIS was really developed as a river-centric system, but it now includes wetlands, open water bodies, and the unspecified records, which you will notice are predominantly there on your screen as orange dots. That is information that has been harvested from other data sources. So you'll see on the left, under data sources, you have FBIS records, you have GBIF records, and virtual museum records. And I'll talk a little bit more about that just now. But basically, the FBIS records at the top are the South African records that have been added by users and by ourselves at FRC and SANBI, whereas the other two are obviously hosted by other platforms. So just to in summary there, we have now different ecosystem types, not just the rivers, which are the yellow dots, but we are increasingly adding wetland data as green dots, and then open water bodies as well as blue dots. Something that is hot off the press on FBIS, and we're very proud to be able to launch this and share it. And this is very much work that was done by SANBI, toiling away in the background to develop National Wetland Map 6. This is a beta version, so the actual data, the actual shapefile is not being publicly shared at the moment, but we have made it accessible on FBIS. So one of the layers, when you open up FBIS, that you can select is National Wetland Map 6, the beta version. And you'll see on the right, under the legend, we've presented the data in color-coded according to the hydrogeomorphic types. So you can zoom in and out and have a good look at how National Wetland Map 6 has improved on National Wetland Map 5. We also have quite a neat little functionality here, which we've added only recently, which is wetland map feedback. And this is something that hopefully will be improving the quality of National Wetland Map 6 into the future. So you are able to, as a user, you're able to record where wetlands have not been mapped, and you can send a little message which comes to us and to SANBI. You can record where a wetland has been incorrectly mapped, perhaps too large an extent or not great enough of an extent. And you can also mark a point where something that has been mapped as a wetland is not actually a wetland. So this is wonderful user interaction with National Wetland Map 6, and we're hoping to hear from all of you out there. We've also added a spatial layer, which is artificial water bodies. It was previously just called dams, and now with the new layer, we have, as you'll see on the right, under the legend, we have different types of artificial water bodies as well. And just remember that all the spatial layers that we see on FBIS, under the list of layers, you can search on most of these. So you would be able to search, for instance, for all biodiversity records that may occur within large dams, within aquaculture facilities, etc. So a very neat and useful way of searching for particular biodiversity data within particular systems. What we've also added is the layer of the South African vegetation bioregions. Now you'll recall that wetland typing uses the vegetation bioregion as part of that typing. And here we have the map on the screen, and you can turn it on, you can turn it off, and so help you to actually type your wetlands. We've also added some climate data. What we have on the screen at the moment are the Köppen-Geiger climate zones, the historical ones. So this is sort of up to present day, and on the right, under the legend again, you can see the various climate zones listed and color-coded. And then we've also added the future, which is in the 2080s, the predicted change in climate zones that we can expect in South Africa. So there, quite nicely, you can click between current and then going into the future, the rather alarming increase in the red, which is the arid desert hot climate zone. So quite useful to see if you're working on wetlands. So as I said, the biodiversity data really are the backbone of FBIS, and that we have our 6 modules. Just to give you a summary of how many, I'll give you just now a summary of how many records we actually have within these biodiversity modules. But just to highlight on the right, the addition of a brand new module, which is the plant module. Again, this is work done by Sanby, trawling through the records, and we have a list, I think, of over 2,000 obligate wetland plants now recorded on FBIS. So basically, what happens is that we develop master lists on FBIS, which are pulled together through engagement with all the experts, and slowly those master lists are growing. So just to give you an indication of the current status of those master lists, we have 135 fish species, 2,709 invertebrate species, just over 400 algae, 169 adult odonates, 135 anurans, and just over 2,500 plant species. And those modules are growing all the time. And in fact, users can add taxa as well. So if a taxon happens to not be on FBIS, the user has the functionality to actually add those taxa. So harvesting, I spoke earlier about other sources of data and the fact that FBIS harvests data from these other data sources. We regularly harvest data from the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, or GBIF. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. And GBIF itself includes data, for instance, from the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity, or SIAB, and also all the research-grade data from iNaturalist. So before you ask me whether we're reinventing the wheel with FBIS, I can say that all of you who are keen iNat users, the research-grade data, if it's freshwater data, does get harvested and pulled directly into FBIS. An additional data source is the Virtual Museum, which is a platform for citizen scientists to contribute to biodiversity data, which is managed by the Biodiversity and Development Institute and the Fitzpatrick Institute at UCT. And on the FBIS master lists, we don't only just list species, but there's also species data, which includes the national conservation status, so our own South African conservation status, the global or IUCN red list status for species, the origin of that taxon, whether it's native, non-native, or invasive as well, particularly valuable for plant data, and also the endemism of each taxon. So it's a rich source of data for our biodiversity information. And currently, as I said, we have over 600,000 occurrence records growing daily as we add data sets. So just a quick comparison, FBIS versus other platforms. FBIS is dedicated to freshwater biodiversity, which makes it different from GBIF and others like it. And what's great about FBIS is that it does harvest from these other data sources, but it pulls in only the freshwater data. The platform offers a diverse array of filters in the search function, and if there is time today, I'd like to just zoom in on one of those just to show you how neat it is and how you can select data if you have a very specific search or filter that you want to apply. And users can set up their own databases within the FBIS. So when you start adding data as a user, you can specify where that data is housed within FBIS, and you can create your own database. So for instance, if you're a manager of a particular reserve, you can call your database by the name of your reserve, and then each time you add data, it's going into that ring-fenced database, which is visible to all other users, but you know exactly where those data are stored. And indeed, if you want to go and search just for your own data, you can just specify the name of the database, and all the information that gets returned to you is specific for your reserve. So very useful. FBIS provides an overview and also detailed panels for sites that pull together useful context information. For instance, if you're looking at a particular wetland, you can look at its HGM type, which either gets pulled from National Wetland Map 6, or it can be entered by you as a user. You can actually refine that HGM type. If you look at the modeled or the recorded HGM type according to the map, and it's wrong or slightly different, you can then enter your own HGM type as the user. It also returns the ecoregions, level 1 ecoregions, South African vegetation bioregions, as I showed you. We've incorporated some climate data, such as the rainfall intensity zones and the mean annual precipitation zones, all very useful if you're filling in wet health, for instance. As I showed you, the Copenhagen climate zones, so quite nice for climate change studies. And we also included the good old soil runoff potential map. So again, if you're doing wet health or wet ecosystem services, that information is on FBIS. And they're also downloadable maps, figures, and panels, which are great for reports. You can literally copy and paste into your report, especially if you've summarized some data for a particular area that you can pull straight into your report. I mentioned earlier that FBIS is good for tracking long-term change. I just want to give you an example here for the fish data. The fish were really the inspiration for FBIS, because our fish data are good in South Africa. This little summary panel that I've got on the screen here, which is something that you can pull out of FBIS, shows all the fish records recorded over time in South Africa. So right back to 1828 through to the present. And you can see quite a nice time series of the fish data and when they were added. And with regards to the fish data, FBIS more than doubles South African freshwater fish records. So a really good addition. So this is just the dark triangles are the FBIS data, and the green circles are the GBIF data. So it's a really good fish record as we have now on FBIS. And there's those number of records. And just to show that long-term change, we can see picked up for the first time that there's actually been a decline in fish records over the last decade or so, which no one would have picked up, but is now very clear on that time series. And in fact, it's a trend that is occurring in most provinces. So that's something that we can pick up on FBIS and start looking into why that is occurring. I just wanted to show quickly here that FBIS is not on its own. What is happening now, what has happened over the last 5 years or so, is that FBIS is growing into other African countries. There is an information system called RBIS, which is in Rwanda, the Rwanda Biodiversity Information System. We have the Okavango repository for biodiversity data as well, or Orbis. And then we are in conversations with various other countries. There's a presentation early next week to a bunch of researchers in Kenya, and also we are having conversations in Gabon, and in fact out of Indaba we've also made connections with researchers in the International Crane Foundation in Zambia. So this is the actual setup of FBIS is something that can be repeated in other countries. It's a shell that can be transferred to another country and then filled with information. So very exciting times in freshwater bioinformatics in Africa, with the mothership, of course, being our the FBIS-based biodiversity information management system. And that's the end of my presentation. Mark, is there any time to have just a quick look at FBIS itself?
Kate, yes, we've got plenty of time. So you do what you need to do to show us around, or whatever it is. You're welcome to do so. Please, yeah, go for it.
Okay, wonderful. Let me just share again here. Can you see the map?
Yeah, it's come through. Is this the web page that you've got open? Yeah, and you're scrolling around.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Great. So I really just wanted to show you quickly one search that might be useful for users, especially those who are using the SAS invertebrate collection method. I just wanted to show you also the main map page here. So as I said to you, we have a landing page, which if you click on the top left-hand corner, the actual FBIS logo, is the page that I showed you earlier, which then will always give you a summary when it's ready of the status of occurrence records, taxa, and users on FBIS, which is there. And then you can go and explore the actual map itself. And what I just wanted to show you is actually zooming into the Gauteng region. What I'm going to first do, as I showed you, you can select your actual data sources. So I'm not going to give you a sort of blow-by-blow account of what's what on FBIS. You'll need to go and have a look yourself. But on the left, we have a very small toolbar, which allows you to select layers, and it allows you to conduct searches. So if I click on the layer selector, you can see there that you can open or close various spatial data sets. I'm just going to click on the national wetland map there, so that you can see that it pops up onto the map, and there in the legend you can see the HGM types. So my search is going to focus on the FBIS records. So on the left is your search toolbar, which allows you to filter for a number of on a number of different components. What I'm going to turn off quickly is just the non-FBIS records. So under data sources, there you can see the list. As I mentioned before, you have the FBIS records at the top, which are the South African records added by users and by SANB and by the Freshwater Research Centre. What I'm going to turn off are the GBIF records from the Global Biodiversity Information Facility and the Virtual Museum, and apply that, and you'll see the number of records as a subset. And then what I'm going to do is just zoom in spatially to an area. Let's go somewhere in Gauteng. How about Midrand area? What I'm going to do is actually go and lasso or select a subset of occurrence records, and you can click on your lasso control there and actually draw a polygon on your map. Let's just randomly go and select a few there, and then update your search. And there we have 7 sites have been selected through the lasso. And then if I click on Sites Overview, I know this text is really small, so I'm hoping that you can all see what I'm doing. If I click on Sites Overview, you get a summary panel on the right that will summarize the information that you've selected. And I see that I don't have any SAS records, but let's just go and have a quick look at the invertebrate dashboard. Here we've got our 6 biodiversity modules on the left, and the crab is the invertebrate module. If I go to that dashboard, that is when I get access to this very useful information, which are all the invertebrates that have been recorded at those, was it 6 sites, 6 or 7 sites. And then you can zoom in and get more information on each site. You can zoom in detail into the current status to see exactly which taxa have been recorded. And very usefully at the bottom, you also have access to the actual data and the reports if they have been loaded up onto FBIS. So we do try with every, especially the larger data sets that we're adding as FRC, we do try and then link it always to a reference or a report, which we then load up onto FBIS. So you can actually get an access to those reports. I see we've got a report here by R. Wilkinson, and then you would be able to download that MSc thesis to go and actually look at the data. So yeah, that's just a very quick peep into what we can search for on FBIS. Mark, can we open up for some questions perhaps?
Yeah, there are going to be lots of questions. I know I've got like 30 already from my side. So if you,
okay.
if you want to, please, yeah, just stop sharing your screen there, Kate.
Sure, and I can hop back to FBIS if anyone wants to see something.
Yeah, okay.
There.
All right. I've known about FBIS. I clicked on the landing page and I went away just because I was busy doing other stuff. But I think what you need to have is we all stand up and applaud you, not just you, but the FBIS platform, because I really think what I've seen today is absolutely incredible. And the comment that I've written down here, I said, and maybe we can just, you can answer this, Kate, if able to. Is this citizen science on steroids? I ask that because you say you have users, and are these users accredited? They're not just Joe Public.
It's a good question, Mark. Thanks. Anybody can register as a user. You don't have to be any particular type of person, practitioner, accredited, etc. But behind FBIS are a group of people, and I'm one of those people who validate, verify, and check all the information that is added. So there are obviously limits to what we can check and verify or validate. It's easy for us to validate taxa that are added. So we will always, when a taxon is added by a user, we will go and check that taxon, make sure that it's a real critter, and not imagined. And also we check sites that are added, because users can add sites. We check those as well, especially if they're in the ocean, for instance. We also check on all, in fact, we check on all the information that is added. The other day, I got back to one of the users who had entered information about some algal records, and the actual unit that had been used to enter those data seemed a bit odd. So I actually got back to her and could check with her, because when you register as a user, you register with your email address, so we can actually communicate with those people. So yeah, I'd like to say that it is citizen science on steroids, because anyone can use it. And the wonderful thing is that we do have this harvesting of INAT data as well, which means that the research grade, so in other words, the data that have been already verified on that end are immediately pulled in.
Okay, I'm just carrying on, because we'll get to the other questions, but I just then want to ask you, how much admin is required? I then couch that with the next question. Have you looked at using AI tools going ahead? Because if there's still how much admin do you guys put in? Because the success of the system is only going to be dependent upon the quality of the data, as you say, but you have to do back-end work. And then secondly, is something like AI a tool that you believe you could use in the future for assisting with the system?
So, Mark, we haven't considered that at all. But yes, there is a lot of admin work. And in fact, because we're coming to the end of a grant, the sustainability of the platform is our big focus at the moment. So, and I mentioned that, we're moving or sort of copy and pasting into different countries. It's not quite as simple as that, of course. There's a lot of admin involved in developing what we call an instance of FBIS in another country. And part of that has to be a sustainability plan. So whether it's incorporating into that project, an amount of money at the moment, this is how we're looking at it, an amount of money that goes towards a sustainability fund that would then sustain FBIS going forward. At the moment, we don't see it. At the moment, we see ourselves doing the admin, and Cartoza obviously doing the technical side. They've also trained us quite extensively in how to do some of the simpler steps, be it changing the color of a map on the screen, etc. We now know how to do that. But yeah, it's depending a lot on this team at the moment. But yeah, we haven't looked at AI. I'd be keen to maybe chat to you about that and how that would even work.
Yeah, okay. Then let me just ask you a question here. Okay, two questions. The number of users that you've got, 400 and odd what does that represent of the usability of the system? 400 and odd people in the country or around the world or wherever it is, are those people that are users that have uploaded data, or are they users that are just squidging around having a look at things on a map? Do you have any indication of that? And then the following on from that in a way is how do you justify a system that you've developed if, and I don't know if this is a small number, is 400 users a small number, Kate? Do you want 4,000 users?
It would be great to have 4,000, yeah. But I think you know we're a small community, freshwater practitioners. I don't know what to call us, but yeah, anyone who works in wetlands, rivers, etc. We are quite a small community. The users are actually registered users, so there's a certain amount of functionality on FBIS, such as exploring the map, having a look at things, that you can do without actually registering as a user. So there probably are quite a few people who are doing that. The 489 users are people who have actually registered. A lot of them are actually entering data. I'm just looking now. We've got 29,756 user uploads. So that's information that's actually been uploaded by users. I would guess that a lot of those are, and I think that's each occurrence record. And I think a lot of those are us as Freshwater Research Centre and also SANBI adding data. So yeah, we would love the community to grow. I think because we're a small community and the extreme usefulness of this kind of database, that's not too small a number. I think if we were 200, it would still be worth it.
Okay. Then my last question is, how do I, sitting, for example, at Rand Water in an SOE, how do I derive benefit from using this database? Because I've written a note here, and we've had this discussion with some of the CSIR presentations that we've got over the years with layers and data and GIS. How do I get the data, or how am I going to use the data of your system in my life? So how do I get the graphs, or how do I get the raw data, or how do I put it into a format that I'm not staring at my second screen here and then writing my report to management to say the Blesbok-Spruit water quality issues are affecting biodiversity in the following ways? Do I copy and paste a graph from there and put it into my report, or do I actually get the data that I must then use or do something with?
Yeah, so Mark, all very good questions. And just the thing that we've always got to keep in the front of our minds, I was going to say the back of our minds, but let's bring it to the front, is that this is a biodiversity information system. So it's very much about biodiversity data. The actual the spatial data that we serve are not downloadable. So you're not able to download, you know, the various spatial layers, which is fine. We're not a GIS. It's not a spatial source of data. It's not a BGIS. It's not a BGIS, for instance.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is SANBI's GIS system, where you can actually go and download the spatial information. So it's very much biodiversity, and yes, there's a lot of downloadable information. I'm just going to share quickly if there is time.
Yeah, please.
So for instance, and here we're back on the actual map.
Yeah, it's there.
I just wanted to show here, and I'm going to do a search actually on myself.
Okay.
So if you go to owner, bottom left there, and I'm going to put my name in there, and there I am, and I'm going to apply that. Hopefully this is not going to take too long. And then what I'm expecting to see are, I think it's mostly SAS records, so mostly invertebrate SAS records that I have done over time. And there under my search results, I can then click on the site's overview page, which pops up on the right, but my face is in the way now. So and there we have our multi-site overview. And what I'm going to do is actually zoom into the SAS dashboard there, and apologies for just rushing through this, but I just wanted to show you how this works. But if we click on the SAS dashboard, all my SAS records come up there, and when it's done,
nearly there we go. Okay,
there we go.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there you can see all my SAS data collected over, I don't know how many years. I think that, I'm not sure if there's a time series on this page, but yeah, it's all my information. So there's some graphs that I could potentially download on the top right. So I can download the charts there. I can also download the map, for instance,
Yeah.
as a PNG. So at various steps in the data that you see, you can download the information. I just wanted to show you here at the bottom, those of you who are familiar with the interpretation of SAS scores in terms of your ecological category. This is quite a lovely data set down here, where you've got your actual level 1 ecoregions on a graph and showing you where your sites are in terms of ecological category. So colored, all the A's are blue, etc. Really nice graphs here that you can drop into your report. Also downloadable charts. So and you really need to explore to see, but each there's summary data that you can download, and you can really delve down into the detail and download that as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. And for the wetlands, we are on our next step with wetlands is to develop a wetland dashboard, so that once you have data within a wetland or a couple of wetlands, you can actually get a summary page of that, which will be, you know, all the your vegetation bioregion, your rainfall intensity zone, your soils, etc., all in one kind of page that you can then literally copy and paste into your report. And Mark, you know, we're increasingly going towards having to report as consultants on the actual presence of species of concern, etc. So yeah, I think this information is only going to become more and more valuable.
Okay, cool. Do you just want to stop sharing there? So yes, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation Kate and I have had by ourselves this morning. not to your exclusion. Thank you for allowing me to take or get some of the questions out the way from my side. I do appreciate that. We'll now open it up to the floor, and I see Jane, you have your hand up. If you'd like to ask your question, please.
Thanks, Mark, and morning, Kate.
Hi, Jane.
I'm one of the non-active 400 and something registered users on FBIS. You know, because obviously I only look at one wetland in the whole of South Africa, which is Korsman Bird Sanctuary, of course.
Okay.
So I just, you know, I kind of judge the functionality of the site as to, you know, how easy it is to find my stuff around Korsman. So I thought I would just make a comment that I was under the impression that the data was being gathered automatically from INAT. Well, I suppose, you know, all the research grade stuff on INAT actually does go to GBIF. It goes there automatically, and also the virtual museum. And you know, once again, now this morning, I browsed to Korsman, and you know, I've got hundreds of records, and there's only maybe a handful here. So you know, obviously the system hasn't gathered all the data that I have put personally on INAT, and which I know is research grade and has gone to GBIF. So I don't know. So if the thing is still like in the development phase, that it's still, you know, gathering all the data, but all the time that I've been looking at the site, when you guys have been making your presentations, you know, that it's always been missing, and it's still missing. So I don't know if you want to just look at that and just check why the data is missing. And you know, I know how many records there should be. The whole of Korsman should be absolutely filled with little orange dots, and it's not. Jane,
what kind of records are they? The actual taxa? Is it
well, I'm just thinking no, well, the plants, I haven't actually looked at the plants now, because I think that's a new one of yours, but the thing I always look at is the odonata, because you know, I've got a lot of records. And then when I went to Korsman, I saw there were about 34 records of crabs, which they definitely, I don't know where they come from, because I've only uploaded maybe about 3 crab records. I don't know where this stuff comes from. And I also found crab records like sitting up in the park and, you know, in the middle of the residential area. So So I don't know where those records came from. And so I just wanted to alert you that there might be some problems with the gathering of the data.
With the harvesting, yeah. And you say that it has definitely gone to GBIF from INAT.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty certain because I know those records are all research grade on INAT, and then they go automatically to GBIF. And I think a lot of them I actually did, I put them in the virtual museum as well. So so this is just like a snapshot of what might be happening. That obviously your whole site's going to be far more functional if you've got all the records. And at this stage, I know the records here.
Yeah, I mean, I will check that. It is something. It's something that gets done automatically, I think, on a weekly basis. The harvesting from GBIF, but I'll check that. And then obviously also if the species doesn't happen to be on the master list, I'm not sure whether then it doesn't pull the data in. So I'll check that as well. But it maybe, I mean, do you have your data sort of on an Excel spreadsheet at all? Because we could also be loading it that way.
No, like all my stuff is on INAT, and I've got thousands of observations, and they're also basically,
Jen, I'll definitely check that. Thanks for alerting us to that. I will check that because it should happen. I don't think it's automatic. I think it gets done literally by a human being once a week, but I will check that.
Okay. Yeah, the thing is that my records have been sitting there for years already. So I didn't put them on in the last week.
Yeah. I will check. Thanks, Jen. Maybe if you can just send me maybe one species or one taxon, and then I can just check that specifically.
Okay, well, look, let me just have a browse around then and see. But I would have assumed that, like, all of the Odonata species in South Africa, you already know what they are. So I would have assumed that they would all be uploaded.
So just send me maybe one occurrence record if you can, if you don't mind. I'll put my email address in the chat.
Okay.
Thanks. I will check that.
Thanks, Jane.
Right. Yeah, I just think that maybe the stuff is it's not all being harvested, or whatever. So
yeah, I will check that.
Okay.
Thanks very much. It should be
okay.
there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Any other questions around the floor? I'm just looking quickly.
So sorry, Mark.
Yes.
I can't raise my hands. I'm using a phone. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can, Elijah. How are you?
Yeah. No, I'm fine in myself.
Good, go ahead.
Coming late. I have 3 brief questions. The first of all, I just wanted to understand for quality control, and assurance, because I might have missed it maybe in terms of how they ensure that whatever that is being uploaded on their system, it have gone through maybe some standardization and some quality control. That's the first one. How do you ensure that? And secondly, I just wanted to check as to whether does it have links to a database of similar information, like links, so that we don't have because we have a lot of wetland related databases. And I also wanted to check in terms of its funding model, the longevity of it, because most of this open system, it is an open system, it might be funded elsewhere, but if you don't secure, the funding model, because there will be a point that might be the challenge. Is it secured in terms of its longevity? Because we see within the sector where some of the database, they become stagnant and cannot be used, like we do have the citizen science one that was developed through ground truth. If you try and check and try to also maybe derive some data to make sense of whatever catchment, whatever that in terms of those citizen science data, for now there are some a bit of challenges there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elijah. Kate, you got some answers for those questions from Elijah?
Thanks, Elijah. Yeah, the quality control is the warm bodies sitting behind the various biodiversity modules, and verifying and validating all data that are entered. So there is, as far as I know, there is no quality control over the GBIF data or the virtual museum data that's pulled in, because it's assumed that is already gone through a similar process under those auspices. So that is the quality control, and as people sitting behind the database doing the validation, that often will involve actually getting hold of an expert on a particular taxon or a particular group of taxa, and engaging with those people. And there's various workshops that have been held and continue to be held around the fish data, the frog data, etc. So there is that. Links to other databases. Apart from the ones I've mentioned, no. I mean, the rivers database was pulled in pretty much whole into FRC, into FBIS by FRC. The links to GBIF I've mentioned already. The virtual museum, there was, because it's not working at the moment through Ground Truth, is the Minisas database, which was on the map that you could see. It had a special little icon of its own. Hopefully when that is up and running, that'll also be linked. Elijah, maybe you can mention which other freshwater biodiversity databases there are in South Africa. I'd be interested to hear a few more. And then the funding model, yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, it's the sustainability model is something that we are focusing on very much so now in the last 6 months of this current grant. So it is something that we're very concerned about, because it speaks to user confidence. No one wants to enter a whole bunch of data if it's just going to disappear in a year's time. So yeah, it is something that we're focusing on at the moment. We don't have we don't have the Rolls-Royce funding model yet.
Thanks, Elijah. I see you've got your thumb up. Have you got anything you'd like to follow up with, Kate, or are you all good? Okay, I'll take it that you're okay.
No, it's fine. It's fine for now. Thank you very much for the feedback, Kate.
Thank you, Elijah. Anybody else got any questions? Kate, what I'm going to do then is just finish off with one question that I had. Oh yes. The students of today need to know about these tools and use them every day. Do you do any presentations or training at universities? Is it something that you try to direct specifically at, I don't know, even first year botany and zoology students or whatever it is? A presentation like this, I think it would be fascinating, and something always just to keep in mind for students as they're going through their training careers, that you are going to become part of a community, and maybe the sooner that they can get that into their heads, and you're not just studying at university for yourself and then going somewhere, that if you try and be part of this community whilst you're at university, it opens you up to understanding what can and can't be done out there, and the support that you can then get. So I don't know, it's just a final question. Do you do any of this sort of presentation at universities or what?
Mark, that's actually a really, really good a good suggestion. And no, we don't. I mean, we've done presentations to many other user groups, but we haven't actually focused on students. We focused on some academics, but yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. I'm going to take it to the powers that be and suggest we do that, because I think it's great. Some students, something that came up recently was that we need to add kind of a, what is the word, like a time period to the data so that it's not publicly available until maybe someone has published a thesis. So I can't remember what we called it, but like an embargo. So it sits there, but it can't be viewed by other users. Because I think a lot of people would like to see that they can add the data as they go through their studies or research, and then it becomes available once they've published. So I think, yeah, thanks for that suggestion. I think we'll take that up.
Awesome. All right, Kate, we'll call it quits at that. I'm just looking around the room. There are no more hands that are up. Kate, I'd just like to ask, because we've had this on Zoom and because we are recording it, would it be possible for us to cut and edit this part of the meeting out and putting it up on the YouTube channel for the Gauteng Wetland Forum and then notifying people of its availability? Or is that something that you wouldn't want, and we can then just disseminate your presentation as well?
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that at all, Mark. And I also just wanted to say that on the FBIS page, I think before you even register as a user, you do have access to a lot of training videos.
Okay.
And I think there's also some links to some little movies on YouTube that can help you through the various steps. So just to show that, yeah.
All right. Sorry, Andrew. Andrew's always late to the party. I think it's because Andrew's getting old and he's not riding his bicycle as much as he wants to. Andrew, welcome. How are you?
It's all right, Mark. I don't mind.
Andrew, you got your hand up. You got a question?
Yeah, just picking up. You see, you raised something interesting at the end about the academia. This week, UJ actually held a workshop with the Water Institute of Southern Africa, which is looking at bridging the academia and industry gap in water and sanitation, which was extremely interesting. The academia realized that they need to deliver product at the end of the day that can fit into the real world. And so this was an opportunity for real world to say, this is what we're looking for. And Mark's comment is very pertinent because there is so much out there that I think it's very useful to actually try and get this sort of information into the universities in a big way. I must admit, while you've been chatting, I've been fiddling and I've been getting very excited about it.
That's great, Andrew.
Well,
it's an amazing look. I'm not in that world, but
yeah,
my little knowledge. It's amazing what information you've shown us today, and thank you for that. But it would be very useful, I think, to get into that linkage into the universities.
So. Yeah,
and also for sourcing information.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Sorry for being late.
No, it's fine, Andrew.
Thanks everyone, and thanks for listening. I'm actually going off to our Western Cape Wetlands Forum AGM now.
Yeah, I believe so. So enjoyed, Kate. Yeah, it's 10 past 10. Thank you very much for your time. We sincerely do appreciate it. We've enjoyed the presentation. And yeah, we'll hopefully see people using the system more and maybe uptick the numbers of users on the system. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Wonderful. Thanks everyone, and thanks Mark.
All right. Thanks, Kate.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.